You think in order to have gratitude, you have to be happy. You have to feel joy in order to find gratitude. And what I've learned is it's the opposite. Starting from a place of gratitude, we can reach for joy and happiness. Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn, and happy Thanksgiving! Today is going to be such a great day. For those of you in the United States, happy Thanksgiving, my friends. And for those of you outside of the United States, happy Thanksgiving. Today and yesterday and really every day is a great day for recognizing and valuing and exploring and embodying the deep gratitude that we each have the capacity to hold in our lives. That's how I look at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving to me is another opportunity to hold gratitude. It's a Thanksgiving, not so much from the traditional sense of the word and the appropriation of people, but really a recognition of what we can be grateful for in our lives. You know, there is not one person who I have interviewed on the Business of Happiness podcast, and we are now at 208 episodes of the Business of Happiness. I have been a coach and mentor to literally dozens of healthcare professionals at this point, almost 100 healthcare professionals that I have coached one-on-one. And in all that time, the most interesting component of deep happiness is a reflection and a practice of gratitude. Now, many people are also meditators. That's a big leadership quality. The most successful leaders take time for themselves to be quiet with themselves. But the key component to happiness is gratitude. I think we take it for granted. I think we take the power of gratitude for granted. See, we think that gratitude is for the other person. And there's nothing further from the truth. When you hold deep gratitude for someone or something or some event or some emotion, you are filled. It's our muscle for receivership. The more you practice gratitude, the more capable you are of receiving the good, juicy, beautiful things in life. That's true. And you know, it's interesting because many of us think that, I practice gratitude because we maybe have a practice in the morning. I do. When we wake up and we think all the things we're so grateful for. Or maybe you have a prayer practice. That's very common in many of the religions, is a practice of prayer. Very effective for saying thank you, whether it's saying thank you to the universe or God or yourself or the earth, Mother Nature, wherever you say thank you to, it's not actually for the person you're thanking. It's actually feeding you. So I want to share with you my gratitude practice and how I make it work for me and my happiness. Because there's several components of gratitude that can really amplify your happiness and your experience of joy in this world. You know, a couple weeks ago, I had one of my really amazing Business of Happiness hivers. This is from my private Facebook group. Ask me a serious question. She said, Tarryn, how can you be so happy all the time when there is so much disaster going on in our world? I love that question because it is such an important one to recognize. It is such a prevalent feeling. And what I always return to is gratitude. Gratitude helps me shift perspective when I'm in a dark place. Gratitude helps me rediscover self-confidence. It helps me feel like I have legs again, like I have something to stand on, like I can feel the abundance of what I actually do have in my life instead of focusing on all the lack and scarcity. Gratitude shows me resources in my world when I feel like I don't have anyone or anything that I can reach out to. Gratitude also shines a spotlight, a flashlight on the positive and the empowering aspects of life. When we dig into gratitude, we can see what we do have at our disposal, the sources, the gifts, the tools that we do have available to us, instead of focusing on everything that somebody's taken away from us. Gratitude's a very interesting thing because it's also very personal. You can't tell someone to be grateful for something. You can't make someone feel gratitude for something. If they're not going to feel it, they're not going to feel it. And that's why I love gratitude so much, because it's unique to you. Only you know what you're grateful for. And what you're grateful for is not necessarily something I'm grateful for. Some people are grateful for freedom, and some people are grateful for guidance. And those two things can be very different, very diametrically opposed. And they can also live together very beautifully. It depends on your perspective. So the thing about gratitude, if you really want to juice that orange and get as much happiness and empowerment out of it possible, here's what I suggest. It's a 3-part process. I know. I love me some processes. I am a very mathematical mind at times, and so I like to have step-by-step instructions. Tarryn, tell me how. Here you go. When I want to incorporate my gratitude practice, I start with identifying first. So identify. What is it I'm grateful for? And then I visualize it. The visualization piece of it is important because if we just list off all the things we're grateful for, we don't really feel it. It's not actually contributing to our happiness. So I could say, I'm so grateful for my family, my house, my country that I live in, and my dog. And see, by just saying that, I actually haven't felt or embedded the gratitude in my body, in my soul. I actually don't feel any happier than I did 5 minutes ago. So what I do is I identify what it is. Let's say it's my dog. Raise your hand, all the dog lovers out there, please. We all know how much value they bring to our lives. So I imagine Dublin, my dog. I bring up Dublin, and Dublin I'm really grateful for. And then I personally close my eyes and I just picture Dublin. And in my mind, visual interpretations of things are usually more like a video format. They're not a still image. Sometimes it's a still image, but it's even more vibrant when it's a video. So I'm just picturing Dublin running around. I'm picturing his dumb smile. Do you know a dog who has just the goofiest, dumbest smile? I picture him running along in his goofy, bouncy way. And I'm picturing him snuggling with my daughter when she's having anxiety. And the warmth and the forgiveness and the unconditional love that damn dog just gives every single person in my family. That imagery, as I'm speaking it, you can hear it in my voice. I'm now doing step 3. I am embedding it in my body with feeling. I am feeling the aspects of that dog that I am so grateful for. It doesn't take words. It doesn't take hours. Very powerful practice is journaling as well about things that you're grateful for. So if you're not used to visualization, maybe you can find it better in words on paper. But that embedding of the feeling is what adds the magic and the power to gratitude. The value of that dog just ratcheted up in my life. The abundance of what I have in my life just ratcheted up in my belief system. My feeling of happiness just got, I don't want to say greater, just got deeper. Did you feel that? Did you feel that as much as I did? I mean, if you were using that practice at the same time, and maybe hit stop and rewind and listen again, but do those same 3 steps, bring up what you're grateful for, close your eyes, visualize that beautiful person or situation or feeling, and then really let it sit in you. Feel the beauty, the intensity, the abundance of that you're so grateful for. That's a gratitude practice. If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know. You know, gratitude has been there for me in many phenomenal ways in my life. Gratitude was actually one of the tools I used in climbing out of deep depression after a year of mourning the loss of my brother. I didn't know how I was going to pull out of that depression. I didn't know how I was ever going to feel happy again. It was a really interesting time in my life. You know, I think most of my life, I pretty much tended towards the happy. I had a pretty happy disposition. I saw great perspective in everything, and everything had a positive side. I was one of those silver lining people, pretty joyful all the time. In fact, I think that's how people described me. So it was my default. And when Douglas died, I lost that part of me. I lost my happy. And for a full year, I just couldn't find it. It was a year where I felt least like myself. And I remember saying the words to Killian, I don't know if I'll ever be happy again. I don't think I could ever be that person again. Maybe one day I could imagine feeling joy again, but I don't think it could be my default. And after a full year of mourning Douglas and of feeling enormous guilt and shame due to his passing, and the layers are so deep here in so many directions. If any of you have ever lost a family member unexpectedly, you know that relationships in the whole family become complicated. And guilt and shame that you feel is stacked and stacked by family members and complicated relationships. And that was true for me too. My stories had stories. And I remember when I realized the damage and the harm that was happening on my life due to my guilt and my depression, I knew something had to change. And my journey is much longer than we're talking about today on this podcast. But where I started, that first handhold on the first brick deep down in that well of depression, that first rock climbing grip to crawl up the sides of that well was gratitude. And it's interesting because you think in order to have gratitude, you have to be happy. You have to feel joy in order to find gratitude. And what I've learned is it's the opposite. Starting from a place of gratitude, we can reach for joy and happiness. Gratitude is that first handhold in that well of disempowering beliefs, of disempowering emotions, of feeling helpless and hopeless and like there is no joy around the corner. Gratitude is your first grip. And I think it's because it's so personal. I think it's because only you can feel what you're grateful for. And I remember thinking, if all that Douglas leaves in his legacy in me is guilt and shame, what a dishonor that is to his memory. And I remember thinking, I want to remember the things I'm grateful for. I want to remember those beautiful moments. I want to remember the relationship we did have in his human form. I want to remember the memories we had as children. There is a moment, I'm getting so emotional in today's podcast. There was a moment Douglas and I had in our hometown where we grew up in Massachusetts after we moved to America from South Africa. And there was this moment when something horrible had happened in our family. We had some turmoil in our home life. And I don't remember the exact thing that it was, but Douglas and I needed to escape, and we were teenagers at this point, so we were driving. And we drove to this golf course in Newton, Massachusetts, and in the middle of the night, probably midnight. And we sat in the car singing at the top of our lungs to Led Zeppelin. I'm so grateful for that moment. I am so enormously grateful for that moment in the car in Newton, Massachusetts at that golf course. That memory is mine forever. Nothing that ever happens, and it belonged to nobody else. No one else was there. It was just the two of us screaming our lungs out to Led Zeppelin, turning the music way up. It was just the two of us feeling and recognizing and being present with one another. Gratitude saved me from depression because it was that beginning to feel again, that permission to feel again. And from the lens of gratitude, I think that the depression made me so scared to feel the loss that I kept avoiding processing the pain and the grief. Gratitude gave me the strength to face it again because I could see those moments from a juicy, loving perspective. See, we don't need to feel joyful or happy before we find gratitude. It's the other way around. Gratitude is what gives us our legs to stand on. Gratitude is that personal component that no one else can have and nobody can take away from you. Well, I'll tell you, I am so grateful to you for showing up for yourself. Honoring the importance and value of happiness has never been more important. In a world where we are bombarded with fear, bombarded with fear-mongering, with terror, with concern and worry, there's so much that we have in our daily experience of things we can be upset and depressed about. Allow gratitude to be your beacon to show you how to live a life of enormous happiness. Now, how to find the abundance in your life now, right now. Nothing outside of you needs to change, not one thing. What do you have to be grateful for today? Allow yourself to identify it, to visualize it, and then really let it embody in your body and feel how grateful you are, not for anyone else, just for you. I honor you, my friend. This is the greatest work we'll ever do. Sending you so much love on Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.